Hi, good day everyone, and welcome here on the Lester Glen Facebook page. In front of me here, a very special young man, a very well-known face in the community here at Region 10. So, without any further delay, he's gonna introduce himself, and then we're gonna go straight into what is really going on. Good evening to you, sir.
Hi, good evening, Lester. Thank you for having me this afternoon. It's a pleasure to be joining members of the public streaming from your platform. And I do hope that our discourse this afternoon will be one that will be fruitful, where information will be shared with them, and the perception that is being peddled out there can be debunked with evidence, of course.
Well, that is so true, because a lot is going on in our country, a lot is going on in our community, especially this region number 10. And I'm very proud to be a Lindener. I'm very proud to be a part here of this community of Linden. I would say despite, I'm very, very pleased and proud to be a Lindener. So let us go straight into it. 2020, let us go straight into 2020. Up new 2020. Tell us.
So I think, as is always the case, we need to speak to the period
correct
prior to 2020, because there's
2015 to 2020.
Correct. There's this perception out there that the PPP oftentimes peddled that the APNU coalition-led government did nothing for Region 10, for Linden and Region 10. And so I want to quickly share with you some of the initiatives that the coalition government embarked on, things that were denied to the people of Region 10 for 23 years.
Wow.
And so oftentimes when the PPP speak to the public, they often portray that they were only in power from 2020 to 2025. We need to remind members of the public, particularly our young people, that the PPP was in office for 23 years. And it was a period that was marred with chaos, confusion, corruption. And so when the coalition took office in 2015, they embarked on a rigorous development plan, implementing policies and programs that would benefit our people from the grassroots level. Because the vision of our government then, the coalition, was always to empower people from the community level, to consolidate and strengthen them from within their communities. Whether they were doing that through educational programs, agriculture programs, ICT, information and communication technology, sports, the aim was always to empower our people from the grassroots level. And so, for 23 years, you recall, we were denied the Linden to Brazil road. And so the coalition government quickly, they engaged the UK government, they were asked to identify a number of projects and submit them to the UK government. And of course, the Linden to Mabura road found the favor with the UK government. A contract was then signed in 2017, and that project, of course, commenced in terms of the feasibility study and etc. So I want to make it clear that for 23 years, the people of Region 10 were denied access for this piece of infrastructure, the corridor there along the Linden to Mabura road. And so we're happy that the foundation was properly laid, that there was no way that the PPP could have turned back the process, because they attempted to do so. And the UK government said to them, if they did not proceed with the project, they were not leaving the 55 million sterling pounds with them. Additionally, the Linden-Suzaik Highway was constructed on the Linden-Forbes-Sampson-Burnham. That highway was given a particular period. I think it was 20 years. And the government at the time, PNC, when they demitted office in 1992, left monies for the resurfacing of the Linden-Suzaik Highway. The PPP government in 1992 would have refused to proceed with that project in terms of allocating the funds that was left by the then Desmond Hoyt regime, and they refused to allocate funds for 23 years so that the people of Linden could have benefited from a resurfaced highway. To cut a long story short, the coalition government came back in 2015, and in 2017, a contract feasibility study was done by SRK Engineering. Funding was approved for a 4-lane and the lighting up of the Linden-Suzaik Highway. This government, upon taking office, would have remodeled and redesigned the project, and so we now have a situation where we will likely end up back with 2 lanes. However, there's a commitment by the coalition government that upon assuming office, when the elections are called and we receive a resounding victory from and a mandate from the people, that an additional 2 lanes will be added to the Linden-Suzaik Highway. A study will commence first, and then, of course, funding will be secured. You remember the Linden Music Corps, the band that we would have trained many young people across the country, particularly here in Linden. They would normally play at our national and other events. That is a program that the coalition government would have pioneered, and it was the brainchild of the leader of the People's National Congress, Comrade Aubrey Norton. The sweeper cleaners, you remember when we took office, sweeper cleaners were getting $25,000 a month. We increased the sweeper cleaners package to $65,000 a month by the time we demitted office. You see the quality of our water. And so we quickly embarked on a study. We constructed several wells at Amelia's ward and in other communities. Sadly, we have seen the neglect of these projects and transformational projects, programs that would have seen quality water coming to our people. And we've seen, when you turn on your taps now, what many complain about every day. We also would have embarked during that period in sports. Athletes from Region 10, for the first time, would have received house lots. Those who performed and those who were commended for their work and putting Region 10 on the map. I refer here to people like Danielle Williams, Shantoba Bright from Mackenzie High School. And many of them, we started a policy that would have seen them and future athletes receiving a house lot and possibly a house being constructed for them during the 2015 to 2020 period. The PPP came into office and they stopped initiatives such as that program that benefited our young people. We issued out 1,000 scholarships across the country, and young people in Region 10 benefited. During our tenure, we had the SLED program, the Sustainable Livelihood and Entrepreneur Development Program, and we would have seen young people benefiting from that program to kickstart their small businesses. I could recall visiting, because I was heading that project in Linden, spearheading it, and I remember visiting a young lady that started a hair salon through the Four Corner area there in the Buckville area. We had agro-processing things set up. We had the Shade House project at Spikeland. Block making factories were given to communities at Block 22, Siberia, Kamaka, and other areas. And so under the SLED program, many persons benefited. Additionally, in support of decentralized services, the APNU-led coalition government would have initiated steps to ensure that the passport office was built here at Linden, to save many of our people traveling to Georgetown, lining up outside the Camp Street since 3 o'clock in the morning. And so we also in that process created employment for young people here in Linden. We initiated steps. We constructed ICT hubs across Region 10, and we had started the National Data Management Program, NDMA, where young people were employed at the multipurpose building there in Block 22, receiving a salary. Upon assuming office, the PPP shut the program down and fired the young people who were working through that program. And that program merely followed from an ICT program that the office of the First Lady, the then First Lady Sandra Granger, would have trained hundreds of youths countrywide. And there was a transition plan for our people to receive employment, as was the case in several other areas which I would mention. So in the area of ICT, we trained young people. They were employed at the National Data Management. They were receiving a salary. Upon assuming office in 2020, the PPP fired those young people, taking close to 100 million out of the region over a 5-year period. We had the health center that was constructed at Bamia. We constructed a doctor's quarters at Aichuni. We constructed a health center at Wiruni in the Berbice River, and several other health centers to decentralize healthcare delivery within our region. You recall the 5Bs program: bus, boats, bicycle, breakfast, completely dismantled. That allowed for children to have free access to and from the school in various constituencies across Region 10. Upon assuming office, the PPP dismantled that program. All of the buses were left to deteriorate. The boat, the one that was in the Demerara River and the one in the Berbice River, were allowed to deteriorate. And so the PPP has no good intention, nothing good to offer the people of Linden. At Kokwani, we ensured that the road from Linden to Kokwani was maintained over that period while we were in office. Just a month ago, we saw images where truckers are complaining and they were protesting that the government of the day has failed to continue maintaining that corridor, which has brought hardship to loggers and even the residents of the sub-region to Kokwani area. A new magistrate court was constructed here at Linden, and a magistrate court was also constructed at Kokwani. Those are all coalition projects that the people of Region 10 benefited from. You would recall that in the past, if you had a matter that required you to pay, whether it's a bail, and you had to recover that money, or child support for single parents, etc., you had to go till to West Demerara to uplift whether it's a $50,000 or $25,000. And so we ensured that during our tenure, we constructed a magistrate court at Linden and one at Kokwani, bringing justice closer to our people. You would recall as well that at the Kokwani area, there was unstable current going to our people there. We ensured that a generator was purchased, and it assured the people of Kokwani that they would have gotten 24-hour electricity. That is still in place today. After 23 years of neglect, the people of Kokwani benefited from 24-hour electricity, and those initiatives were all done and executed by the coalition government. What you would have seen in that case is the Prime Minister cutting the ribbon, attempting to claim ownership of that project. But the truth must be told. Under the APNU, the Aichuni received, can you believe this? The community of Aichuni received asphalt road for the first time between the period of 2015 and 2020. The first time ever Aichuni would have seen asphaltic road was during that period. We would have rehabilitated the guest house at Staff Hills in Kokwani, where ministers today, when they go to Kokwani, that is the guest house. The one that kind of looks like the Watuka guest house here, neglected for 23 years. Upon taking office between 2015 and 2020, we ensured that that office, that quarters there at the guest house was refurbished. You recall we were denied local government elections for 23 years. It's only when the coalition came back that we were able to see a return of local democracy in terms of the NDCs and the municipalities being given the opportunity to take charge of their business. In 2019, 119 million was made available during the David Granger administration to refurbish the call center while we engaged the services of an investor to come and set up operations in Linden. And of course, 2020 elections, we were cheated out of office. The PPP took over. They were given a mandate to ensure that they reach out to young people. You recall the big fanfare when hundreds of young people turned up to be employed at the call center, the Toucan call center under a company called Midas BPO. And we were promised 150 jobs, and then by 2023, 300 jobs. Today, that facility is closed because, of course, the PPP doesn't have a plan. They have never had a plan of transition, and despite young people who were promised that they were going to be employed and paid significant sums of money, many of them were receiving 3,000 Guyana dollars a month, 10,000 Guyana dollars a month, because the investor was treating them unfairly. To cut a long story short, the Midas BPO project and the call center, where 300 jobs were promised by the PPP, never materialized. It has closed down. You heard me speak of the 5Bs program. This is the condition of the buses, you recall, and the boats. This is what the PPP left the buses. This is what has happened to many of the buses countrywide. They have allowed them to deteriorate, and this is the result of when you place people who do not have your interests at heart into power. School children suffer the consequences as a result of this government's neglect, simply because Region 10 has traditionally supported the APNU, and that is the result of this government that preaches one Guyana. You would recall as well that over 200 youths during our period benefited from the Citizen Security Strengthening Program, employment again for our young people. The bicycles that were distributed under the 5Bs program. President David Granger distributing the bicycles. I am here in the background walking. You will never see images of these under a PPP-led government because they do not have your interests at heart. There is so much that I know time will not permit, but I'll just pick out, because there are people who are of this view that the coalition did nothing for Region 10. We ensure that indigenous villages and the Tushos were given access to information, internet and tablets for school children to enter the internet hubs and do their assignments, etc. You recall that it was the PPP that brought VAT to Guyana. And it was the coalition, and VAT was 16% when they brought it. It was the coalition government that reduced that burden to 14%, and there was a commitment to further reduce it to 12%. You would recall that under the coalition, we constructed a technical dormitory at the Linden Technical Institute. I can say to you that 5 years into the PPPC government, this facility has not been handed over, has not been completed. And so what has happened, they have denied young people the opportunity to come from places like Rockstone, Wiruni, Kokwani, Aichuni, who desire to do a program at the tertiary level, at the Technical Institute, whether it's a course in mechanic or plumbing or whatever it is, ICT. They have refused and denied young people the opportunity to come out, spend time here, go home on a weekend, and be assured that there is a accommodation for them to complete their studies. And so you should not be fooled, young people. The PPP has nothing good to offer you, and so your best days are with a coalition-led government being in place. You would have recalled as well that we activated what is called the Bertram Collins College of the Public Service. They say we never did anything for young people. But I want you to look at these pictures. These are young people coming out of school, being trained.
How many of them in total?
Hundreds of young people across the country. All right, being trained. And they had the uniform, you know, the famous color. They were trained at the Bertram Collins College of the Public Service. This is the next batch. And as soon as the PPP took office in 2020, after a 6 months period, they suspended the program, killed it for a matter of fact, sent home all of the staff that were there, and young people who would have testified that the program would have taught them how to engage and interact with the general public and train them with the customer service and how to interact with the public. The government, the PPP government, dismantled the Bertram Collins College of the Public Service and would have sent home hundreds of young people from across the country. You recall that at the time when David Granger entered the parliament, old age pensioners were receiving $9,000 a month. By the time we left office, it was increased to $20,500. The patient care assistant program, young people again, employed in Linden in a 5-year period. We created program, we created the conditions for our young people to grow, develop, and take charge of their lives. And so we trained them in the patient care program. This was the graduation ceremony, one of the graduation ceremony. You see the Linden Music Corps band that I spoke of earlier playing the national songs to them as they were heading to the graduation there at Watuka House. This government has not trained a single young person in PCA. But in this election year, suddenly we'll seek to begin the process of printing application forms to give you that perception that they will now activate back these programs. The question should be asked, why did they shut them down in the first place? You recall, as I mentioned, to support healthcare in the Berbice River, we built 2 water ambulances. One was in the Berbice River at Wiruni, the midway point for the Berbice River, and the other was in the Demerara River. And today, this government has allowed all of those assets to deteriorate. In fact, if you see the condition of the ambulance, this is what the water ambulance looked like that the APNU left in 2020. All right, this is the passport office at Linden that I spoke about in support of decentralized services. And young people from Linden were employed in this program. And so you should not be fooled into believing that the coalition did nothing for the people. During our tenure, we ensured that lights were placed along Burnham Drive and along the Winifred Gaskin Highway. To my surprise, none of the lights right now are properly working on the Burnham Drive corridor. And a limited amount of lights are now working on the Winifred Gaskin. The government has refused to maintain those things. We, during our tenure, allocated funds for a new RDC building because the people who are under the direct employ of the government should be treated with respect. So, upon assuming office, while the foundation had started under the coalition, as soon as the government took office in 2020, they killed the project, fired the contractor for whatever reason, and they shelved the project. We continue to write strong justification as to why this project is necessary. One, it will bring the departments that are scattered across the town into one space.
So where was the plan to build it?
At Spikeland. All right, just across from Regma Primary School, there's the foundation already laid. They killed that project. We wrote justification as to during COVID, social distancing is a requirement. You have in the current RDC building, staff are working in cramped space. Sewage.
So the building that they're using right now, is it the government building?
It is.
Okay.
But sewage is backing up. It has electrical problem. It's a fire hazard because the fire department failed it. And so to deny us this building in 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024, and all of a sudden in an election year, we suddenly got the building approved. And this is what was occasioned, the neglect and denial of sensible policies and initiatives for 4 years. But in an election year, we see a rush now to construct these
Is this
pieces of
a question between, so is this only for Region 10?
Of course. Well, there are other regions that are controlled by the opposition, Region 4, Region 7, that I'm certain are receiving the same problem. But the blatantness of the administration and the targeting and discriminating of Region 10 is one that has been taken to another level. All right? We saw the construction of 2 new police stations under the coalition government. In 2018, the new Mackenzie police station and the Wisma police station was completed sometime in 2020. But the work started during the tenure of the coalition government. You recall during COVID-19, when none of us knew what to expect, the prudent management of the resources and the visionary leadership of a coalition government ensured that a disease infection center was constructed at Lillian Dal. And it benefited all of Guyana. And so when COVID hit, when this government, the PPP, took over, we had about 25 deaths. By the time, despite they received a facility that had everything in place, the beds, the oxygen, and they would have had to add in additional oxygen pipelines and so on to assist the project, the death toll during COVID rose to 1,200 and something. And so clearly, they did not have a plan to deal with COVID-19. Spikeland, we don't discriminate. The perception out there is that some voters who support the PPP live in Spikeland, not all of the supporters. And so we ensure that the playground that they were denied for years was handed over to the community. We ensure that we constructed a new bridge at Spikeland so that farmers can get their produce out. We ensure that the early childhood development center was built at Linden so that parents who have children and are employed by the government could have their children dropped off at the center there. 40 million was allocated for this project at the 1 Mile. And this was an initiative of the current leader, Aubrey Norton. We ensured that the Watuka guest house that had lost structural integrity was refurbished. And the historical architectural outfit that it had was restored. And so the same was done at Kokwani. And so this government cannot come to tell you that the APNU did nothing during its tenure. I cannot complete this booklet because time will not permit. There's several other things I have not even mentioned. We ensure that the nursing school, Charles Rosa, that medical books were donated to our nurses. You would recall that upon taking office, the PPP closed the nursing school, the nursing school at Linden, sent home the year 1, and they only allowed the year 2 and 3 to continue. While in regions 1 to 9, year 1 and to 3 were able to continue with the program. Sent home all the young people that were doing the nursing program after they would have invested heavily in the medical books, expensive books, principles of anatomy and physiology, fundamentals of nursing, medical surgical nursing, the Mosby Medical Dictionary. All of these books cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. And after those young people would have invested, the government shut the program down, denying Lindeners that kind of empowerment. And so do not be fooled by the propaganda. If I'm to highlight quickly what they did when they came to office in 2020, you will get a jaw dropper. Because many of you don't know half of it. Despite we were denied access to go on NCN, we have started to utilize mechanisms and programs like this one to highlight. So, upon assuming office in 2020, the PPP regime suspended the funds from the Linden Enterprise Network. The Granger administration initially had given LEN, Linden Enterprise Network that supports small businesses, 150 million. They came into office. By the time we left office in 2020, that money had grown to 300 million. So what they were supposed to do is continue the issuing of loans to small businesses. Listen, jobs, entrepreneurship is a powerful tool to support job creation and to get people out of poverty. There are a lot of people, and you know we often say this is a talent basket for the country. Jobs are created through ideas, creativity, and investment into those ideas. And so if the 300 million can be dispersed to that young girl that has the little nail business, the nail salon, or the young girl on Blueberry Hill that does hair, if she can't go and get a 500,000 or $1 million, because it is a revolving fund, you put up a collateral, you show your asset, you complete your income and expenditure statement, you have a registered business, and you have your compliance from GRA and NIS, and you are guaranteed access to that loan. This government has refused. They have not dispersed a dollar to Lindeners from 2020 to present. And the 300 million continues to sit in that account. Every year when the Minister of Finance is asked, when will the money be dispersed? He said shortly. and MP Director Finance would press him because she was the point person on finance in the National Assembly.
So what is happening though with the persons that have their outstanding loans? Do they still have to continue paying?
Of course, persons who would have taken loans during the period are still paying, and that is how the fund keep growing. All right, because people are paying back. Of course, in any system you will have defaulters, but it is the responsibility of the government to insulate any system from potential hacks or fraud or whatever. They have to be the ones to put systems in place to ensure that when people say they're going to take $1 million and they put up a property, that the property belongs to them, that they're the rightful owners, and that they take possession of the original title or transport. That is how the commercial banks do it. And so don't tell me that, or tell the people of Linden that because a few people default, you refuse to allocate the 300 million that is sitting there in an account. While sugar workers would have received a massive payout for an agro-processing to support agriculture, billions of dollars, Linden received, I think it was $9 million. And so do not be fooled. You must recall that is under this government, the PPP, that attorney at law Tamika Clark, a Lindener, a resident of Retrieve, was arrested by SOCU simply because she advised her client to not provide any answers to the questions that were being asked and to remain silent. Imagine that. Your rights are being taken away from you under this government. An attorney was locked up because she advised her client to remain quiet. Now this one is an interesting one. During our tenure in office, there is a program called the Board of Guardians, where persons who suffer from disability are assessed. They go before a board, and that board would of course make recommendation for them to benefit from public assistance. Between 2015 and 2020, we had a bipartisan board in place. We ensured that you had APNU people on the board, AFC people on the board, PPP people being on the board, and together they presided over the proposals that came before them. A family might be suffering from a man might have a stroke. It is recommended that he be given the public assistance, which is $16,000 a month, I think. And so the number in 2015 was at 250. By 2020, that number grew to 800. We placed 800 people on the public assistance program because they needed the money. People who suffered stroke, people who, I remember a guy, his right hand, I think, was severed. He's disabled. Upon taking office, this PPP government, you know what they did? They installed 8 members to the board. Not the bipartisan board that we had. All 8 members of the board were Indo-Guyanese, in a region that is predominantly Afro-Guyanese. Over 80% is Afro-Guyanese. And they proceeded to disrespect and take people off the board, off the program, and refuse to even consider them. I remember a 5-year-old boy that had a kidney problem at Block 42, and his mother was told that he doesn't qualify. Then who qualifies? And we wrote letters to the minister saying that this is unacceptable. The most vulnerable are being treated like this. I remember going to the Barbies River and an 83-year-old man pleaded with me. He said, "Chairman, I have not received my pension book. Because when the officers come, I can't navigate down the boat landing in time. They sit in their boats, and by the time I manage to get there, they drive away." And he pleaded with one of them, "Can I at least get the 25,000 cash grant that they were given back in 2021? And they told him no. These are well-documented cases, and they cannot be denied because we have the evidence to support. All right? The Darfur home. Many of you recall.
Yes, I wanted to ask something about that. Correct.
We
Continue.
we rehabilitated the Darfur home for our senior citizens. Every Wednesday they will go and play games and so on. This government sent their principals to try and take the possession of this building in an attempt to convert it to a COVID-19 quarantine facility. And the people of Retrieve stood up to them. Many of you recall they protested and they quickly backpedaled. And so the building remains in the possession of the people, the senior citizens. However, despite promises to support the program of our elderly, they have refused. They have not allocated a single cent to the senior citizens Darfur home. And so things have deteriorated. I am certain, and I can assure the senior citizens, that upon assuming office, with the support of our people, when we take office, we will ensure that the facility is repaired. Under this government, over 200 nurses have left for the UK, resigned, gone and worked in the mining sector because they couldn't deal with the stress of Rudy Small and others. You recall when the nurses protested him for distasteful comments, he cut the nurses' salary to 130 Guyana dollars. For 3 months, nurses took home 130 Guyana dollars, now 130 US. This is what this wicked government did. PPP government. And so the nurses became fearful because many of them had commitments, whether courts, whatever. And so they were forced to go back to work. However, court proceedings follow. The judge ruled that Rudy Small must pay 20 million to the nurses. The government must pay, reimburse the monies that were lost, and an additional 20 million if he did not apologize to the nurses for the distasteful comments he made. Well, he quickly issued an apology. But the government of the day, this PPP government that claims it loves nurses, has appealed the monies that was awarded by the court. And so that matter is still before the court. You recall what happened MASH Day? We in Linden, we are the initiators of matrimony. We debuted MASH, it first started here. We wrote the government and said, on MASH Day, can you send some of the floats to Linden while some are sent to Borbies? They were so vindictive that they sent the Linden-Suzaik Highway, the float that depicted the Linden-Suzaik Highway, went to Borbies. This is how wicked the PPP is. During the coalition time, we had fairness and balance. Some of the floats came to Linden. Many of you recall the oil rig that the Ministry of Natural Resources had sent to Linden and other floats, while some went to Berbice. And then they went and lied and say that we never made an official request. We did. We wrote them and we asked that some of the floats come to Linden and some be sent to Berbice. Well, all of that will change soon. You recall the Hamper situation, where Hampers came to this region from the Civil Defense Commission, and rather than bring it to the RDC so that councillors can interact with their constituents and distribute it, they placed it at the Prime Minister's residence. And over 300 hampers were spoiled, left to spoil. Rather than be distributed to poor people, they were left at the bottom house of an official to spoil. Alright? That is the PPP that claims that they love the people of Linden. And so there are many other projects here that I can highlight. I know we have a lot of other things to discuss. Look at the synthetic track. We started the synthetic track. They lie and said how the reason why we didn't complete the synthetic track is because we wanted to bring in yellow and green turf. Nothing of the sort. If you look on the billboard at the 5 corner that the coalition would have placed there, you will see that the synthetic cover is a red cover. Because we weren't blinded by colors. And so they inherited these projects and they dragged the project out. During local government 2023, we were told the project was going to be finished in 2 weeks to date. The pavilion at the synthetic track and no washroom is in place. The parking lot is not completed. 5 years on. Despite the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sports receiving billions of dollars to cover programs like these amongst others, not a single project has been completed by this PPP government. That they inherited one from the coalition because they haven't started any new projects. There is not a single transformational capital project that this region has benefited from between 2020 and 2025. Not one. I dare you to name one.
What is going on at the sports club, at the Mackenzie Sports Club?
Incomplete. Now, Region 10 is the talent basket for the country. When you recognize talent, you allocate resources and you expedite. And mind you, that is a Chinese grant that assisted that project. And they are dragging their feet on it. There is the Christianberg ground is not, no work was done on it. There are lights that we bought and we told them when we left office to put up the lights so that people can play at night, basketball, etc. The light stanchions are still on the ground. Nothing done to Christianburg. Nothing done to Spikeland. Nothing done to Wizrock Playfield. Nothing done to Botafago ground. Nothing was done at Aichoni. Nothing was done at Kokwani, the swimming pool in the state. And what people need to know is that this government is spending a budget that is 5 times combined the 5 years of the coalition, the budget that we had from 2015 to 2020, this government budget, one budget for them, cover the entire 5-year period. They have money. And so why are they not completing initiatives?
What is going on at the
this?
school? The school.
Which
the
one?
School that has been built.
The Bamia Primary School has still not been completed. It is important that you know that these are all coalition concepts, you know. When we were building the Bamia Health Center in Amelia's ward, we constructed the Bamia Nursery School and we completed that. We constructed the Christianburg Primary School and we completed that. The only school that had an issue at the consultancy stage was the Bamia Primary School. It had to go back to consultant because the consultant Ian, he had objected to something. I can't recall what it is. I know the former REO would be able to speak to this.
Okay.
5 years into this government's tenure, the Bamia school still can't be completed.
So if you can average roughly how much percent?
Well, the
the
last update we got is that it was at about 96%. But when you physically go on the ground, in my view, you haven't seen a basketball court completed. I don't think the fence has been completed. Electrical wire has not been completed, the system. I don't think the plumbing has been completed. And so I don't believe that it's at 96%. The contractor has asked for extension. He has been given 3 or more extension. At the last statutory, they said that they're now going to complete it by June month end. I am putting it to you that if I decide to host another program in July, I will be reporting to you that the school has still not been completed. So do not be fooled by that. You know that they would have also 70% of all contracts go to people outside of this region.
Yes.
And I have the tender documents that I can highlight and show you who those contractors that benefited from projects in Region 10, who they are. It goes against a position that we shared with them. We said, allow Londoners to be empowered. If you give them a project to do, they will do it to the best of their ability. But when you bring a man from Region 6 and Region 1 and 5 to do a project, the man come do substandard work, take him money and he gone. He's not accountable. And so 70% of projects went to people outside of the region, and this was facilitated. You might ask, how? All 5 members of the tender board are aligned to the PPP. So they sit, they review the contracts, and they all affix their signatures to the contract document. And that is how many of their friends, families, and favorites are benefiting from contracts.
Because I noticed, you know, that the contracts were awarded last year, late last year, very late, and they were also in a haste. So why do you believe all of this was happening in such a fast pace?
So let me explain that what transpired. So for 4 years, that position that I just mentioned to you, we put it to the government. If you come into Region 10 to do a contract, we have contractors there that tender, they have met the criteria, allow them to be a part of the tender process. And competitively, many of them will come in and win. They ignore that recommendation. And so in 2024, because of all of the infrastructure work that was going on countrywide, Bishop Edgell recognized that at October-November, his budget was just at about 51%. And it triggered an early 5:30 meeting from the president, because, you know, if you are at 51% in November, then it means that you can complete this work program by December 31st, when that system closes, it comes to an end. You got to return all money to the consolidated fund. So in what he did, and well, we're happy that he did that. I just wish it had occurred since 2020 or 2021. So what he did, he came to Linden, ensured that the contracts were awarded below the ceiling that would have ensured that it had to go to MPRITAB, the National Procurement and Tender Board. So many of the projects maybe came in at 13 million and under. Because he was just, by doing that, he would have just been able to draft a contract, bring it to the Wutuka House, tell people just bring your ID card quick, sign up. You could get your GRA and NIS documents later, but they had to rush it through the system. Because if you were given 100 million in 2024. And at November, your budget was at merely 55 million. You have 45 million to spend out. And if you can't spend it out, it means the money will go back to the consolidated funds. What he did is practically expedite the contracts, award them to people who he refused to award for the past 4 years, so that he could have justified that he spent out his money. So that when he was crafting the 2025 budget, he would have been able to justify why he's asking for more money. If you can't spend all the 2024 money that was given to you, how are you going to tell the budget director you want more money? So you have to initiate steps to spend all the money. And that is how many Lindeners I know were able to benefit. I want to caution our people though, to do not bite, do not be quick to just spend the money without managing it prudently. Remember, there is a man called GRA, a big brother, and I want to charge you to ensure that you save all your bills, ensure that you have an accountant do up your income and expenditure statement so that you can submit your returns to the Guyana Revenue Authority.
Yes, well, you're talking about budget. We're already on the topic. Well, the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sports, of course, would have received, I would say, billions of dollars. Well, you're the region, so I know I could recall very well in the year 2020 they would have received about $805 million, and then of course in 2021 they would have received $1.5 billion. It's a lot of money we're talking about, and yet a lot of projects are not completed. Tell us.
Yeah, well, I
especially for Region 10.
I made mention of
Region
that
10.
A few minutes, that none of the projects on the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sports have been completed. If you can show me a project done by the ministry that has been completed, flash it and send it to me. Let's make it public, and I will apologize.
Even for let us talk about Region 10 again, and we have a lot of talents in Region 10, a lot of very good athletes. Do you know of any that were recognized, that would have maybe received anything?
This government doesn't even want to recognize the athletes when they come in the country and they bring back a gold medal at the airport. If Region 10 don't come together and put on something, and you saw what they did with Nationals last year, where they have now shifted it to February, I think it was, and so many of the students who wanted to participate, I think they only certain categories are now being allowed to participate, denying Region 10 of its fortune, simply because we have won the championship, I think, over 18 times, and about 7 or 8 consecutive years, more times than any other region. They would have devised a plan to take away that reign from Region 10. But again, with all the billions of dollars that the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sports have received from 2020 to now, we can't point to a single project that has been completed in the Upper Demerara Berbice region.
Wow. Before I ask you the question, of course, I want you to tell the viewers as well what is the role of the REO, as well as what is the role of the the RDC. Yeah. I wanna touch on a simple question as well to Letem. A lot of persons always said, why the buses from Letem do not load from Linden and head up there?
Yeah. So again, that is a position that we had put towards the administration sometime. I know the town council was pursuing it, where they had recommended that buses coming out stop and then go on their journey. You set up it would of course allow persons to spend the money in Linden, boosting economic activity here. But because of the hassle, I understand that many of those bus drivers get, whether from the police or whoever, many of them, when they come out, they just want to touch and go because they're targeted, and it's something that we need to look at. Of course, we will consult on that. As it relates to the role of the RDC, as you know, the RDC is the highest decision-making body in the region. It is the institution, I would have said this before, that has been given the mandate to coordinate and set the direction of all social and economic development activities in the region. So every 5 years, we go to the polls, you vote for national elections and you vote for regional elections. Coming out from that elections, councillors are polled, a regional chairman is voted in, and then an REO is appointed by the president. It's important that you remember this, people. The REO who controls the resources, the funds, the money, is appointed by the president, the administration of the day. No money is sent to the regional chairman office. The regional chairman office is not a revenue collection agency. So what happens? Councillors are placed in various communities and they identify issues, they bring it to the council, it is debated, voted on, and a request is made for monies to be allocated in the budget for the works to be executed. So it's important that people understand that. And so you know about the public policy position and how it is executed. Basically, it's a position or a rule that is made up and enforced to control, you know, behavior pattern. Whether it's in the family, you can have a family policy. You can have in the workplace a hospital policy. But in the public or the region or the country, it is referred to as a public policy. Now, a policy, in short, for members of the public who may not understand, there are 5 stages, simple stages. So councillors who are elected to serve, they go into the fields, they interact with you, the residents, and they identify issues that you might have bring to their attention, whether drainage, whether bat infestation in schools, whatever it is, poor road, poor lighting, whatever it is. You bring those attention to your councillor. So the issue has been identified. That's the first stage. The second stage is where we sit at the RDC in the subcommittees, whether it is education, public works, agriculture, administration and finance, and I can't remember the other one, it's not coming, health. Those are the 5 statutory committees. And so once you identify the issue, your councillor, it comes to the council for discussion. At that meeting, you have technical officers who are there. The regional health officer is the secretary to the health committee. The regional agriculture officer, he's the secretary to the agriculture committee. The REDO, the regional education officer, is the secretary to the education committee. The regional executive officer is the secretary to the finance committee. And so at that meeting, we bring the issues that you would have shared with us, we discuss it there, and then it is voted on. All in favor of the road being constructed at Blueberry Hill, by show of hand, your councillors would have taken that, voted on it, it is carried. At that stage, it means that the vote was adopted by a majority. All right? Once it is adopted, we come back to the people and we said to them, listen, we would have voted, we have now documented that this will form part of the budget, and once central government provides the resources for it, we will be able to execute it. Once the budget comes back and we see that that road was approved or the bridge or a drain was approved, the 4th stage in the policy now is for it to be implemented. Who implements the policy? The technical people, all right? The engineers in the works department, etc. They are supposed to go out in the fields with the contractor, do up the measurements, ensure that the right steel is being used, etc., etc. And then the final stage and the 5th stage is where an assessment and evaluation is done on the work that the contractor would have given with oversight from the engineer. That is where your councillors will go out and flag substandard work and say to you, well, the drain has collapsed because they give a contractor who's a friend, family, and favorite to do it. And that's where we have been exposing, educating, and agitating issues to the general public. Wow. And that is how the system works in short. So any money that comes to the region, understand that if there is a rumor that money goes, there's no physical cash that comes to any councillor or the regional chairman. The monies are sent through vouchers, through checks rather, to the regional executive officer. So if money goes back to the region, it is because of the inability of the REO, who is appointed by the president, to spend that money out, either maybe to spite Region 10, or simply because, for whatever reason, he's unable to execute a program within the prescribed timeline. So I just wanted to clear that up for members of the public.
So, Mr. Adams, do you see in those 5 years, I would say, with our new chairman here, REO, Mr. Dwight John, do you see progress on his?
Well, let me say this to you. Unless you have an REO that is prepared to take all instructions and only take instructions from the council, then every council will have challenges. And so we have had our fair share of challenges. We have said to the REO, for example, the monies that come to Region 10 for Mashramani and other events for the year, this year, I think it was $12 million we got from January to December to spend. Do not take Region 10's money to go and celebrate MASH in Georgetown. Because Georgetown, which is the capital city, they have all of the ministries already there in Region 4 to support them. And if Region 3 want to cross the Arbor Bridge and go cross, fine. But with our little $5 million that we got to take out from the $12 million to run MASH at Linden, Kokwani, Aichuni, it is unfair for you to take a chunk of that budget and send people to Georgetown. And then when you're done gyrate and you flounce and you do whatever you got to do in Georgetown, you then come back to Linden and say, oh, y'all only get $700,000 for spend on MASH. It is unfair. And the public needs to know that the council, that autonomy that exists for the municipality, they have a little bit more autonomy. RDCs are between a rock and a hard place, where yes, the council is in place. You have an REO that is appointed by the president, and only the president can fire the REO. If you decide to move a vote of no confidence motion against the REO, you leave the council open without any scrutiny. It means that he will be able to sign away things, and then you wouldn't have the eyes of the councillors even being able to peruse it, to checkmate him and to flag corrupt activity that may be occurring. And so it's important that the public understands how the system works. Whoever is in power has the upper hand in terms of control over the resources distributed across the 10 administrative regions.
How is the relationship with the RDC number 10 and the Linden Mayorton Council?
Well, we have always took on a big brother role to the where the municipality is concerned. Where they can't do things that they can execute, we will step in and of course provide support. However, again, policymakers and the councillors could be given lawful direction to the town clerk or to the REO. And if that REO is receiving political instruction not to carry out this, not to carry out that, don't pick up the garbage, spite people, don't service the tractor, despite the mayor might be given those instructions for him to focus attention and energies on putting them back into operation. If they want to spite you, he can keep the file on his desk, because monies for contractors, whether mechanics, people doing work at the council, has to be signed off by the town clerk. And in the case of the RDC, it has to be approved, signed off by the REO. So the relationship is not its best, because you have a town clerk that is taking political instruction and you have an REO that is bent on taking political instructions.
Well, before I ask the next question, of course, we all know that GPL, that the government is trying to bring GPL to Linden. But before I ask concerning that question, I want to touch on, the region have much saying about it concerning the garbage in the park, but I see like it's almost going back to square one again on the park there.
Yeah,
people are still littering.
Because there is always an attempt to make your elected officials look bad, whether it's the regional chairman, whether it's the mayor. There are instances where we sat at the committee level, invited the police, invited the fire department, invited all stakeholders, and we said the route for MASH is from the Five Corner to Bayrock. The police agreed, the commander agreed, the fire people agreed. Yet you had political operatives within the region trying to create mischief. They wanted 2 Mashramani. We said this is Guyana, we support one MASH. The RDC has sanctioned one MASH. And so you remember what occurred when the road was blocked and the driver was attempting to take the float and the truck down to Christianburg. We said to him, no, that is not what we voted on, and that is not what was agreed to. but again, political mischief. You saw, again, at events where the council would have given approval, the police, which is politicized, when one set of people are having events, they're allowed to carry on without interruption. When anybody who perceives to be an opposition is hosting an event, the police comes and want to shut the people music off. Despite you have a approval from the court saying X amount of time that the party can go up to. And so those are some of the issues that our people would have invested money in their events, and it's unfair for them to have to shut off their music and their food and all of these things spoiled because of political directive from some PPP hack. It's unacceptable, and we will continue to stand up to the PPP. Very soon, I encourage our people to go out and vote. Speak to our young people. I know that they are being enticed by other things, but do not be fooled. All right? Now everything that glitter is gold.
That is true. Well, we heard the Prime Minister said that the PPP government has planned to connect Linden to the GPL grid. Do you support this move?
I do not support the move. I believe the people of Linden need to be vigilant at this point. This thing is creeping its ugly head again. 13 years ago, you would recall, we lost 3 of our Lindeners, Shemroy Boye, Ron Somerset, and Alan Lewis, when the government tried to impose a ridiculous 1,000%, I think it was, electricity increase on the people of Linden. The people of Linden rejected it. They pushed back against it. I want to say to the people of Linden that do not take the PPP for granted. This is the Prime Minister's statement a few months ago. Linden to be connected to the main GPL grid. So they're coming in through the back door from another angle, and they're saying to us that first they said that this project doesn't have anything to do with GPL, then they shifted the goalpost and they said that it will have nothing to do with increasing electricity. They committed to us, but you can't trust them. All right, they have said that they wouldn't do a lot of things. They said they wouldn't fire young people. They sent home hundreds of young people, and so we cannot trust them. And so what I believe they're attempting to do is to take away the assets that our parents worked hard for. Whether the LUS-CSL co-op, you saw them attempt to do that. But if this government can't even solve GPL problems that get them blackout every day in Georgetown, why would we want to invite or encourage GPL to come to Linden? We don't want GPL here. What we want to ensure is that we continue, that they allocate monies so that new generator sets can be put in place, that we can manage our own affairs here and ensure that we have stable electricity. And mind you, the issues that are occurring at LUS-CSL, in my view, it is not a management issue. They are being denied resources, and the government wants to dominate and control. They had a PPP hack down there named Handy trying to create problems, all right, for the LUS-CSL. And so this is an attempt to remove the subsidies through the back door. If they're allowed to bring GPL into Linden, into Region 10, at some point, they're going to remove the subsidy. Many of you would recall that back in the days, the PNC would have pushed hard after consulting with bauxite workers for them to receive, what you call it, tax-free benefits on the overtime. So they removed the tax for those workers who did overtime, which meant that they got a lot more money. And while we were in power, the PNC that is, we ensured that the same approach that was taken for the bauxite workers, the same thing was done for the sugar workers. They received tax-free overtime, and they benefited. When the PPP came to office, you know what they did? When the bauxite company was privatized and Bosai and the other companies took over, they allowed the tax-free time to continue for the sugar workers. When they do overtime, it's tax-free. But on the bauxite water, they put the tax back on the overtime. That is what this government did, the PPP. And so they don't have your interest at heart. To vote for them is to create further destruction in our region. And we want to ensure that that doesn't happen. Remember that people died for our electricity. We must continue to fight to ensure that their death does not go down in vain.
That is true. Another question I have here, of course, why should the young people get involved in the electoral process?
All right. You know, a lot of young people, my interaction with them, they cite feeling as though their vote don't count, that, you know, their voice is not being heard. But I want to say this to them. At one point in my life, I was like that, never wanted to get involved in politics until I recognized that, you know, the politicians are the ones who, by their actions, will determine whether you get a good quality of life or not. And you can use exactly what the PPP is doing. Look at what happened to young Adriana Young, Keon Forgenet, and Ronaldo Peters, where the police, the state, a policeman shot an unarmed man, killed him. And you know what was occasioned in the other areas with Adriana. And so it is important that you be a part of the process. You have a voice. If you stay away from the process and they secure a majority and GPL comes to Linden, guess who's affected? All of us. Because the price of goods and services will increase drastically. You go to buy chicken, it's going to increase. The ice cream man who freezing the ice cream, ice cream price will go up. And so it will have a ripple effect, and every single person will be affected. And so it is important that you become a part of the process. We understand the challenges, but I have just did a comparative analysis of when the coalition was in power, how you benefited with jobs, etc., and when the PPP is in office, how they have dismantled all of the sensible policies and programs that targeted our young people. I think that we will continue to do the work in encouraging them, in supporting them, and pointing out to them that if Guyana is to grow, the PPP must go.
Wow. Well, of course, if you guys go in power, what are the plans? What are the initiatives expected from APNU once you guys take office?
So first, let me say this, that all of the initiatives that I just mentioned that were killed by the PPP, they will all be resuscitated. We will bring them back. We will put well-structured programs in place. The part-time workers will be trained properly. They will receive increased salary. Permanent jobs they will likely benefit from, with benefits. Currently, they are not receiving NIS. They're not receiving any proper benefits. What is being had with them is that they're being used as political pawns. If there is nomination there, you're going to see they have to put on a red jersey and they have to march and chant PPP. I can say to you that just like we acted professionally with young people under the Bertram Collins College of the Public Service, young people can be guaranteed that they will be used for political, or at any time would we seek to use them to do political activity. Now, I want to let people know from the onset that some people are of the view that our plan is not realistic. The PPP is saying that we are going to be pumping too much money into people. But I believe that we should be investing in our human capital. We should be investing in our people first. And so, many of you recall that when the coalition took office, I said to you earlier, the lowest category of workers were receiving $25,000, sweeper cleaners. The average worker in the public service was receiving about $45,000. Within 5 years, without oil money, we increased that by 77% combined over the 5-year period. This government with oil money in 5 years has only given to public servant 38%, I think it is, 38%. I think this year the public servants are scheduled to get an 8% increase. So when you combine from 2020, and mind you, they didn't give any increase in 2020 or 2021. They started to give increase from 2022. While you know we are battling with high cost of living, the price of food, agriculture produce, etc. is skyrocketed. And so some of the initiatives I want to say to our young people and in general, that our plan says that upon assuming office, we will put back all of those things that I just mentioned that were dismantled. All of the workers that were GWI will be re-employed. The Bertram Collins College of the Public Service, the 5Bs program, free buses to take your children to school in every region. All of that will be activated. Additionally, you can expect up to 35% salary increases for all government workers in the first year, which will benefit over 70,000 public sector employees. Tax-free threshold will be increased to 400,000. So it means that if you're earning, if you fall, your salaries fall below 400,000, you won't be paying taxes. All right, and that will benefit 225,000 workers as well in both the private and public sector. So tax only will be on persons earning 400,000 and above. We will ensure that the loans that are the money that is sitting in the LEN account and even grants that are issued to the Small Business Bureau and others will be distributed in a fair and transparent manner to small businesses and on young entrepreneur pioneers who are marketing their products and services across the country. 10,000 a month for each child up to 16-year-old, not like the present one-off cash grant. Every month, a child will receive $10,000. Old age pension will jump from whatever it is currently to 100,000 a month. 100,000 each year. We will do cash transfer. Do you know that the PPP, when we proposed cash transfers to the citizens, they said that it would heat up the economy, that it wasn't a sensible policy, and they're on record as saying that, the president and the vice president. Quickly they backpedal. Of course, you know, they started with 200,000 a household, and then when we said to them that it would be more sensible to give each Guyanese over 18 100,000, they quickly ran with it. Of course, they never even sought to acknowledge that they took the idea from the coalition. So old age pensioners will get 100,000. No payment of light bills up to 10,000. So if your light bill is under 10,000, you will not have to pay for that. 50,000 month student stipend for persons attending tertiary students at UG and LTI. So young people, you need to know that upon assuming office, there will be a policy within the first 100 days that will see students across LTI, within the first year, sorry, not 100 days, the first year, we'll see students attending the Technical Institute receiving an incentive, 50,000 monthly, and that will benefit about 20,000 students. There's a monthly rent-to-own project that the leader has proposed that will benefit at least 50,000 families. You would recall that under Forbes Burnham, the cost for a house was about $24,000, I think it was, or $12,000, sorry, at the time. The government would have invested $6,000, and the beneficiary had to pay back $6,000 at 0% interest. Fast forward, what we are proposing is a rent-to-own, where we will build the house for you, put a plan in place for you to pay a monthly fee that suits your current salary so that you don't feel pressured. Many of the commercial banks are denying persons access to funds to construct a home because, of course, their salary is not would not be able to sustain paying back a loan and taking care of them and their families. And so the bank would usually look for those indicators to guide them. And so this proposal that the government will put in place will ensure a house is built for you, and that based on your salary scale, a portion of that money will be taken out until you finish paying back that money. Of course, we said we're going to increase the part-time workers from 40,000 to 50,000 monthly. They will have training and eventually job placement, which will see them receiving a higher salary. And they will be able, of course, to be owned. Nobody wants to own them right now. If they apply, if they request a job letter, there is no contract in place that is one that they can, be assured that if they don't do political work, they wouldn't be knocked off. And many of them, if they don't turn up to political activities, like when I hear one woman complain, ministers come, if they don't turn up, their salaries are cut. The money is cut down from the 40,000. That is what is happening right now. We intend to stop that and to put better systems in place. And so those are some of the plans that we have for the first 100 days. Additionally, you've heard the leader spoke of a people-centered program plan where the people all across Guyana, the 6 races, will be treated as priority during our tenure.
Well, that sounds like a very good plan, great initiative, definitely. Well, of course, in closing, let me just touch back again. Tell us what is going on in Kokwani briefly. Tell us what's going on in Aichuni. Just briefly, let us touch on those two communities.
So, for 5 years, you heard me say that the first asphalt road that Aichuni got occurred during our tenure. Lighting up of Kokwani, the improvement of the water supply in Aichuni occurred during 2015 to 2020. We have seen a regression and everything gone haywire. Sensible policies, you see the condition of the water coming out of your tap. It's no different for the people in Aichuni. And so the government came, they built a few concrete roads, did not bother to put in drains. This region would have received in 5 years a combination from 2020 to 2025, 10 drains approved for construction, an average of 12 drains under the capital program throughout the 6,555 square miles of this region. So, despite we're making $65 million an hour and over $1.4 billion a day, that's the amount of money Guyana is currently making, the government continues to ignore the sensible policies in communities like Aichuni, Kokwani, and even at Linden, where the people have been calling for drains first. This is a hilly sand and clay region. The sensible thing would be to invest in drains first and then seal those roads to the drain. Apart from the infrastructure, I can't point to any other project that the PPP would have done in Region 10 that I can say is transformational. We made representation for a fire station to be constructed. That is being done. But there is not any other thing that I can speak to that this government initiated. The bridge across the Demerara River here at Linden, if you check our manifesto, you will see it. If you check the PPP manifesto, you won't see nothing mentioned about a 4-lane bridge. We're happy that they started the bridge. We're happy that they started it. But the residents of Linden must know that it was never the intention of the PPP to do that bridge there. Now, many of you saw the announcement of free crossing, and
yes, I wanted to touch on that.
They thought that people would have gotten excited. Let me say this to you. While I support free crossing, I support it being kept. Meaning, car, vans, motorcycles, and maybe canter trucks, canter vehicles, the small canter vehicles. But the heavy logging trucks that are owned by friends, families, and favorites of the government, I personally believe that they should pay a toll at the bridge because they're making money. They're fetching out stone, lumber, sand, laterite, and to remove monies that will likely go to the municipality to assist in picking up your garbage, to buying new garbage trucks, tells me that the administration, by removing all of the fees from the bridge, is merely seeking to target the municipality and to pull as much resources away from them that they could have been benefiting from to support the work program of the municipality. So that is my personal view. All right, I would allow for car, vans, motorcycles, every other category except large lorry trucks and the bush trucks that are taking fuel in and doing gold mining operations and so on. Why can't they pay a $5,000 or less to cross the bridge, to ensure that the bridge is properly maintained, and to ensure that the staff who will likely lose their jobs, young people again, when they remove the toll, is over 70 young people, I understand, will be fired, will have to be sent home from the bridge. And so we have to put the interests of our people first.
So Deron, where does the money go?
Actions.
Where does the money go from the bridge?
The money from the bridge goes straight to NISIL, which in turn goes to the coffers, the consolidated fund. It doesn't go directly to the municipality.
So does Linden benefit anyway?
In my view, while they were under the coalition, there was a percentage that was worked out, where if the bridge made $10 million, I think, I'm just calling a rough figure, $7 million was to go to the consolidated funds or to NISIL, $3 million went to the municipality. In my view, I think a greater percentage, if not all of the monies, should remain under the purview of the municipality for them to execute programs and projects to the benefit of the people across the 8 constituencies here at Linden.
Wow. Well, at least it sounds as though that AP, you have great plans, of course, for the other sub-regions. It sounds that you guys already have everything sorted out.
At Kokwani, we will ensure that we put the focus on sports, that the swimming pool is upgraded, that the road continues to be maintained, like was during 2015 to 2020. That the first time I went to Kokwani, it took me 5 hours. And when I came back, I remember attending a general council, and in that report I said to the then President Granger, Chief, we have to do something on this road. Within 2 weeks, machines were sent to the Kokwani area, and they have remained there permanently during our tenure. So as fast as the road deteriorated, you had the contractors going and they were doing work there. We ensured that the Workers Club at Kokwani was refurbished after years of neglect. All right, we ensured, as I said, that 24-hour electricity went to Kokwani. We ensured that the magistrate court was built at Kokwani. We ensured that the building at Staff Hill that looks like the Utuka House, the guest house, was built, a brand new one. We ensured that programs went to Kokwani.
Is that place still functioning, the hotel there?
Well, it's there. I'm not certain. The PPP may have blocked persons from visiting, and only when they go there allowed. Kind of like what's happening on NCN. Do you know that the regional chairman, the mayor, or no elected officials that in this region is allowed to do a program on NCN?
Right here in Linden?
Right here in Linden. We are blocked from hosting a program. Who gets to go on NCN? The town clerk, the agriculture man for site, the prime minister rep, the regional health officer. And so the narrative that they have been peddling is one that is bare propaganda, to the point where right now we are battling with an alleged disaster of hand, foot and mouth disease, allegedly, and they're trying to say to the population that it is not hand, foot and mouth disease, that is some other thing that mimics hand, foot and mouth disease. Well, we can't trust them. We don't believe them. The signs and symptoms that are being presented in young people, in babies, is one that looks just like the hand, foot and mouth disease. And so I want to call on our people to be vigilant. We have asked for fogging to be done. We have seen an increase in dengue across the region. Many people are coming down with dengue. And so we have been encouraging them to spray, whether it's in Kokwani, whether it's in Aichuni, whether it's at Linden, to do a regular schedule of spraying. I need not speak about the shortages of drugs. You, the people of Linden, know exactly what is going on. If you go there for a drop, you can't get it. You're going to get a slip with a red line through it because they don't have it. Then you got to come at the pharmacy and buy it. I don't need to tell you that. You have experienced that for the past 5 years. We recently saw an attempt to bring back expired drugs onto the market. You saw it posted on social media. That is not a government that have your interests at heart. We need to ensure that in the upcoming elections we go out. The voter turnout needs to be increased at least just to 80 up to 90%, so that we can send a clear message to this government that enough is enough. We want justice for the 3 boys that got shot. And I say 3 because while Keon Forgenet and Ronaldo Peters were killed, we had Hollingsworth who was shot in his eye. And so we must remember him, and even all the other people. Adriana Young, a young 11-year-old girl, just wrote common entrance, didn't even get a chance to read the results as to which school she would have attended. And we've seen this administration not show a desire to do a thorough investigation by inviting the FBI, who the family would have requested to come into the country to do a thorough investigation. We must continue. Upon assuming office, within the first 3 months, I can assure you, within the first month to 3 months, that the FBI will be invited to come and do an thorough investigation. We do not have confidence in the RSS, the Regional Security Team, because we have seen how they have acted in the past, and we believe that they do not serve the best interests of our people. And so the only competent agency that the people and the family would have requested is to have the FBI come into Guyana to do the investigation.
Yes, that's true. Well, 2 more questions in closing.
Sure.
Does our region have any COVID cases?
Well, so far we have not heard, or it has not been reported by the regional health team. We will continue to monitor that, and as soon as we are briefed on whether there is a case, we will put out an advisory to the general public. But again, we know the protocols that will be activated: social distancing. We will likely have to go back to wearing our mask, and of course take the other sensible measures to prevent it from spreading.
So this could be anytime soon? Yeah,
once we get word, we will of course feed members of the public. We'll continue to monitor as well the WHO website to of course see when there are cases reported, and we will liaison with the technical officers, doctors and nurses to provide guidance to us as well.
Yes, because you see, well, of course we have to wait on the government to give those kind of instructions. But you know, many times they try to make it look as though nothing is happening, but yet we have to...
Well, I oftentimes say this, that this administration, they have a tendency to distract you with what is obvious while they are plotting and planning behind the scenes. And while I mentioned that on health, I want to say to our people, do not be distracted with small parties that are emerging and trying to entice you and trying to convince you that the coalition is not the best option for you. Let me say this to you. We must meet a point where we say we are done with winner-take-all politics. We see how dangerous it is. The PPP taught us that. We also saw that the small parties that emerged in 2020, that we now understand, well, while I know that, they had a hidden political agenda. Because all of them have now teamed up with the PPP. TCI has teamed up with the PPP. The New Movement has teamed up with the PPP. Schumann Party, Liberty and Justice, have teamed up with the PPP. All of them said they were independent in 2020, you know. They have all now teamed up with the PPP and have endorsed the PPP. And so I say to you, do not be enticed by what is before you, the luxury that is being shown to you in various sections of the population. We have to consolidate and strengthen our base. No one will vote or will act in the best interest of the people of Region 10 except regional people who you can trust. I can say to you that the APNU has a candidate in Aubrey Norton who is a Lindoner, a man that has been tested, a grassroots man who has walked the length and breadth of this region. He has been to the Berbice River, he has overnighted there, he has been to Kokwani, he has been to Aichoni, and he has grounded with the people. This is a man that has a very good rapport with people of all ages, our young people. He taught at the University of Guyana, where hundreds of young people benefited from his work. And he has never been accused of any wrongdoing. And those who may have accused have never reported or even went to the police because maybe they knew that it was not the truth that they were talking because there was no evidence to support what they were saying. And I call on our people to not be fooled, to let us support coalition politics. You know, I want to say to our people that in coalition politics, there is what you call broad representation. One of the main advantages of supporting a coalition is them having to share a mandate. So you have political parties, the PNC, the WPA, amongst others within the coalition. And so in sharing a mandate, I believe it leads to broad representation. And these same political parties, of course, they will have their own ideology, they will have their own views. And so they have to bring those views and ideas to the table, hammer out the issues. They have to compromise, each of them on their opposing ideology, to arrive and to create policies that would result in legislation being taken and voted on in the National Assembly. So there is a process. In when a take-all politics, like what the PPP is practicing, somebody could get up today and say, close the Charles Rosa School of Nursing, and that's it. They have a majority, and it is voted on, it is carried, the year one is suspended, they're sent home. They can go and vote and say, do not allocate house lots to athletes when they perform well, and by the stroke of a pen and they voted, they take those things away from our young people. And so you need a coalition in place because, as I said, it will provide an opportunity for political parties to discuss, to hammer out issues that are brought before them, to compromise on their opposing ideologies. And in the end, once your plan receives favorable from a majority of vote within the coalition, your idea goes to the legislative arm and it is voted on, and a policy, sensible policies are then created for you, to the benefit of you, the people of Guyana. So be careful, don't be fooled. Every vote counts. Encourage persons, those particularly in the category ages 18 to 25, to go out and vote so that we can have justice for those who were shot and killed, for those who lost their jobs, whether the 300 GWI workers, young people that were fired, the NDMA that was closed down and the young people sent home, the Charles Rosa School of Nursing that they closed the year one, suspended the year one rather, to many of our young people, the 200 nurses that have now had to flee Guyana and gone to work in the UK because of the conditions under which they are working, the 30 doctors that have resigned from the Linden Hospital complex because they couldn't work under the the conditions that were presented to them at the time. We want to ensure that when we go to the ballot box, understand that all of those injustices that were done to our people, the lawyer that got locked up from Linden because she advised our client to not say anything to the police, she was placed under arrest, that all of those things are on the ballot. LUSCSL is on the ballot. You want GPL come to Linden, and our light bill now become one where we paying $25,000 a month and we getting blackout like it's happened, that has been occasion in Georgetown? No. So all of those things are on the ballot. Public assistance, the people who are denied, they are on the ballot. The poor roads that we're seeing built by friends, family, and favorite, it's time we turn up and vote this corrupt regime out of office.
The final question, many persons that would have applied for a plot of land, they're waiting years.
Yeah.
How does the EPNU plan to deal with this? Because years are talking about, not a year or two, but years.
Well, again, everything has to be done in a structured program. There are persons who applied since 2012, some of them 2007, that have not yet received their house land. Why is this happening? Because there is no proper structure in place. There are friends, families, and favorites of the government who just apply in 2022 and don't get house land, and 2021 and don't get house land, because they're well connected. And so there has to be a well-structured program. One of the proposals we believe is that the house lot application should be shifted from 21 to 18. if you're saying that young people can start drinking alcohol at XY age and the age for consent is 16, then they should be allowed to apply for a house lot as early as 18 years and not we have to wait until 21. And then we believe with the resources that we're getting with the rent-to-own program that I just highlighted to you, we will be able to construct the houses for them, and then the system is put in place for them to pay back the monies without having to go to a bank, etc. So those are the things we're going to be focusing on: expediting applications through the system, having a more decentralized approach like was done with the passport office and the other facilities that we had here, the eye clinic that we set up. Do you know that dialysis, it was under the APNU that we set up a dialysis center here in Linden, so that persons who have to be traveling to Georgetown, you have to do dialysis, I think it's 3 times a week. It's $15,000 a session, which works out to $45,000 a week for a dialysis patient. The government of the day currently just pays 11 sessions, I think it is, for a patient. So after you don't get an 11 session, that's it. You now have to go and find $45,000 a week. We plan to ensure that the functioning dialysis center is up so that our patients who have to go and do the treatment to have their blood cleansed and have the process recycled, etc., that they have access to those things, and maybe possibly that can be done free for them within their region because we have the monies to do it. $65 million an hour, just over $1.4 billion a day, it wouldn't hurt us. And so don't let nobody fool you and tell you that we are just selling dreams. The reality is Guyana has the money to take care of its citizens. It has the money to ensure that proper infrastructure is prepared and constructed across the length and breadth of our region. We propose as well the bridging of the Berbice River to ensure that the loggers that are coming out from Kokwani don't have to just depend on a pontoon that is sinking every now and then. That we have the resources, the money, and it is our desire to construct a proper bridge there so that the people from Kokwani too can benefit, that the people from Aichuni can have access to clean drinking water. Can you believe that at Aichuni there are still people using pit toilets in 2025, oil-rich Guyana? And so we have already documented all of those things because we have been on the ground listening, and many of those things we are going to hit the ground running when we take power on the 1st of September.
All right, so we have 1 more minute remaining, 2 questions in 1 minute. Yeah. Please touch on what's going on at Washupon Road here. A lot of mud. The road is in a full mess. What is going on at Washupon Road here? I realize we have a competition between the Spanish and the Chinese. They're very dominant in the community of Linden. Touch very briefly on that in 1 minute because we're about to close here.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So the Washupon Road. Let me deal with the Spanish and Chinese first. So we've seen an influx of foreign nationals coming into our region. For the first time in my life, I am witnessing prostitution allegedly occurring at the Five Corner and other areas, something that we never witnessed before in our region, and it is being encouraged by an administration that doesn't, as I said, have your best interests at heart. And so we have seen this domination and control where Chinese believe that they can come in and do a few things, treat people anyhow. We welcome persons to come and set up and invest, but not at the expense of Guyanese. And so whether you're loading stone at a facility, it must be done where Guyanese are put first. Guyanese must be treated with respect. You can't load 20 Chinese trucks and have Guyanese sitting waiting 2 days, overnighting, and still when it becomes their turn, another Chinese truck comes and is placed in front of them. I cannot support that. We welcome the investment that they're bringing. We welcome the work that both sides is doing. We have said that publicly. And we cannot, however, do it at the expense of Guyanese citizens. We must ensure that Guyanese are treated with respect, that the labor laws are respected, that those who are forced to work, I got a report that they had Guyanese eating out a plastic bag at a work site. I don't want to mention the name because we had planned to investigate. But all of those things we have to ensure that we protect. And the Washipan Road, roads fall under Public Works. It is the responsibility of Public Works to fix those major roads.
Thank you very much for your time, Mr. Deron Adams. And I definitely know that we're going to be continuing with this as time goes by.
Thank you.
Thank you
It was
very
a
much.
pleasure.